The following has critiques of And Just Like That and Sex in the City. Sensitive audience members are advised to view with discretion. Last time on AlienShepherdess.
Honestly, Dominic, if you bothered to watch part 1, you wouldn't be so clueless. Joann Fabrics collapsed in a heap of coupons and clearance bin. Clueless? I was there, darling. She exposed the private equity vultures who bought Joann, loaded it with debt, and left it for dead. Unlike you, I pay attention. Please, you only remember the pretty woman scene. Richard Gere spoon-feeding the definition of private equity. Tragic you needed Julia Roberts to keep up. Better Richard Gere than your endless wailing over And Just Like That. She even gave it a funeral, Alexis. Lilies, taps, the whole production. Quite right. That show deserved nothing less than a burial plot. Frankly, I'll miss Joann more than Carrie Bradshaw's endless scarves. Then we agree on something at last. Now, let's get on with part 2 before you bore me into oblivion. We invite you to our memorial repast, the sacred gathering where tears dry, if there were any to begin with. The casserole appears, I'm sure there will be plenty, and the stories get a little less reverent, if they ever were to begin with. Think of this as the second course of our farewell to Joann and Just Like That. The caterer was kind enough to create dishes emblematic of the departed. For our first course, we have the Joann baked ziti casserole. Humble, dependable, not too glamorous, but always there when you needed it. A dish that no doubt fed generations of crafters who valued discounts and seasonal clearance sales. Now for dessert, the staff suggested And Just Like That, the Dubai chocolate. Glossy packaging, viral appeal, imported hype, and yet somehow inconsistent, overpriced, and dry in the middle. A luxury treat that left many wondering why they bothered. I've never tried it, just repeating what I've heard. Well, maybe not everyone at the table will take to it. Graham might find it a little too exotic and too rich and politely pass it along. Sheet cake seems more her speed.
The woman sat at her desk, typing furiously into her laptop, confident that somewhere in the world there were readers desperate to know her thoughts on brunch, grief, and men who wear scarves indoors. She gazed at the blinking cursor, knowing it was her destiny to put words on a page, even if no one had asked for them. Outside, the city hummed with life, or maybe that was just the construction noise from her Gramercy Park townhouse, the one she had impulsed herself into buying with the help of her new friend and realtor, Seema Patel, a purchase less about property and more about proving she could begin again, even if it meant beginning badly. It would be her second start house, with her second choice man. The high ceilings and sunlit rooms were both inspiring and exhausting, with so many surfaces to decorate and so many hallways to walk through dramatically. The woman sighed. This was her era, again. And though the first era had been documented, beloved, and perfectly concluded, she was certain the world needed a sequel. In her heart, she knew the story didn't have to make sense. It just had to have fabulous coats and long pauses between dialogue. And just like that, the reboot was underway.
Look who brought their laptop. I know that wasn't the real story, but I will not miss hearing her prose of whatever the hell that was. That The Woman novel Carrie is diligently working on in a series sounds god-awful. Of course, sequels aren't the only things trying to reinvent themselves. I had my own second act to plan,
and it started with a van full of fixtures from Joann's final days.
So if you watched our last video, you saw that we were able to purchase fixtures from Joann's. And this is me unloading the modular rack units. You might have seen this inside Joann's stores. This is how they displayed their retail items and whatnot. So even though there's no Joann's, I'm able to use the modular unit for my own end use and probably have my own fabrics and materials on there. Before we do anything though, we need to get these sorted, and I'm going to use a pressure wash and clean these racks up and whatever else we managed to salvage from the store, and get it spruced and cleaned before I bring them inside the house. So you're going to have to get off of here. Excuse me. You're worse than the cats. What the heck? You're not even a pet of mine. You're just claiming this. Interesting.
While I was scrubbing away years of retail dust, my mind wandered to another piece of pop culture I've known for decades, and all the style, drama, and questionable choices that came with it. In the early summer of 1998, Sex and the City premiered on HBO. This American comedy drama series followed the lives of 4 modern New York City women as the viewer witnessed them in their relationships, dating, careers, and most importantly, their unique friendship. The ensemble featured Carrie Bradshaw, played by Sarah Jessica Parker, Samantha Jones, played by Kim Cattrall, Miranda Hobbs, played by Cynthia Nixon, and Charlotte York, played by Kristen Davis. Carrie Bradshaw, the central protagonist, serves as the audience's urban tour guide, navigating love in its many forms via her friend group, as well as her own encounters. This was a highly influential show in the late 90s and early 2000s. Looking back, I try not to persecute it too much for the content, running themes, and corny double entendres we as an audience had to suffer through. I'm not gonna lie, at times that show missed the mark even for the era, but it was still able to entertain, and it holds nostalgic feelings for many of its viewers still today. People, especially women, were hooked on this series. I mean, you felt pretty left out on Monday morning's water cooler meeting if you didn't follow the series or didn't have an HBO subscription. At times, the love for the show lacked logic. I had friends who owned the DVD box set and insisted on watching the very abridged, syndicated version on TBS.
Make that make sense.
They loved it for its fashion. They loved it for its rom-com. They loved it for its candid discussions around sex. Can we say sex on YouTube? Schmex? I don't know. They loved it for its curly. My girlfriends, and I admit I partook as well, humored ourselves through quizzes trying to see which character archetype matched our personalities.
Part of the fun of Sex and the City was the fantasy of seeing yourself in one of the four. And yes, my friends and I took the quizzes more than once, as if our answers might somehow change with the seasons. Of all the quizzes and conversations over the years, are you a Carrie, Miranda, Charlotte, or Samantha? One thing was always clear. I was never a Carrie. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate a good metaphor, but Carrie's whole brand was turning every life choice into a column, and most of those choices were impulsive. This is a woman who would buy $400 shoes instead of paying rent, recycle the same 2 boyfriends for years, and then somehow still act surprised when things don't work out. That was never me. I'm a little too deliberate for that kind of chaos. I've always been more of a Miranda with a dash of Charlotte. The Miranda part, pragmatic, logical, and not afraid to call things the way I see them, even if it's not the popular opinion. I like to plan. I like to problem solve. And I'm perfectly fine questioning a trend before I hop on board. The Charlotte part is the side of me that believes in tradition, that puts sentiment into milestones, that cares how the dinner table looks as much as what's being served on it. I'm the person who will make the spreadsheet for the project, but I'll also make sure that the color palette matches your dinner plates. But here's the thing about both Charlotte and Miranda. They were, in their own ways, the most codependent women in the cast. Charlotte often defined herself by her marriage, first to Trey and then to Harry, bending her own boundaries to keep the peace. And Miranda, for all her independence, she would still overextend herself emotionally for Steve, taking on the caretaker role instead of dealing with her own needs. That's the part I recognize, the caretaker mode. Making sure everyone else is okay before I check if I'm okay. It's a skill sometimes, but it's also a trap. And just like that, didn't exactly help them break out of it. You can agree to disagree with me if you want with what I'm about to say. And just like that robbed us of seeing our mainstays grow in any meaningful way. The writers gave us new circumstances, but those circumstances just reskinned the same old patterns. They rearranged the furniture, but the house was still built on the same foundation. Much like private equity rebrands without fixing the underlying structure. I know, how did I circle that back around to private equity? When we talk about private equity, Joann isn't the only one in the Leonard Green scrapbook of questionable outcomes. There's Prospect Medical Holdings, J. Crew, the Motorsport Aftermarket Group, Sports Authority, and then there's the Container Store. My personal sanctuary, a cathedral of acrylic bins and perfectly labeled hope. Where a person could wander the aisles and believe, if only for a moment, that life could be sorted, color-coded, and contained. But not even the most airtight storage box could protect it from private equity. Who in their right mind looks at a place where dreams are sold in stackable bins and thinks, you know what this needs? More debt. I know, apparently the same kind of mind that can look at aisles of fabric and yarn and decide the best way forward is to unravel it all. Of course, not everything this past summer was fixtures and funerals. While my husband was off in Colorado with our daughter's troupe, I was back home wrapping his Father's Day present, a Buddy Rich vinyl. Hopefully my husband won't need J.K. Simmons screaming in his ear to appreciate it. And when I mention J.K. Simmons, I undoubtedly am referencing the film Whiplash. In this story, a young jazz drummer, Miles Teller, pushes himself to greatness under the ruthless instruction of Terrence Fletcher, a teacher who believes abuse is the only path to genius. The film becomes a high-stakes battle of wills, posing the question of how far ambition and sacrifice should be taken. J.K. Simmons' performance won him the Best Supporting Actor award at the 87th Academy Awards in 2015. Though Fletcher bragged about molding the next Charlie Parker, everything about him, from explosive big band sound to volcanic temper, screamed Buddy Rich. The soundtrack leans heavily into big band, aggressive swing fill, tight brass, driving rhythm sections, drum solos that echo Rich's ferocity. It's sweaty, explosive, and a spectacle. Fletcher's conducting style, sharp, cutting, domineering, mirrors Rich's own reputation. Rich was famous not just for his drumming, but for being volatile, demanding, even tyrannical with his band. That my way or else energy feels embedded in Simmons' performance. Hopefully you'll get a chance to see Whiplash. From the same creator of La La Land and Babylon, it's a psychological rush, the kind of film that leaves even the viewer questioning their own tempo. The fixtures are clean, the dust is gone. I've already helped them evolve beyond their original purpose, which is more than I can say for just like that. Fix yourself a to-go plate and take all the ambrosia salad. Apparently no one else wanted it. Also stay tuned as I enforce child labor on my teen sons in the final installment of our Joann series.